Hey YouTube, Ed here with Jack of all trades and welcome to another video. So what do we got today? Today we have got the Killer Instinct Lethal 405 Crossbow. So let's get right into today's video. And welcome back. So yes, today I've got the Killer Instinct Lethal 405 Crossbow. But before we get into the video, I need to ask you to go down and hit that like and subscribe button down below. Make sure you ring that notification bell so you get notified of upcoming videos. And if you like what I'm doing out here on the Jack of all trades channel, let me know in those comments and I will do more videos like this. All right, so the Killer Instinct Lethal 405 Crossbow. Why did I buy this crossbow? Well, the state in which I deer hunt, the state of Minnesota, has changed their laws, and they now allow us to use crossbows during the regular archery season. And I've often been kind of toying with the concept of crossbow hunting because I've got a little bit of a jacked up shoulder, and practice for me is difficult with regular archery equipment. A little nerd fact about Ed, I am viciously colorblind. I don't track deer well as a result of it. Red blood on a brown leaf just doesn't scan with me. So I like to put in a lot of time behind my equipment so that I make sure that I can put a good shot on that animal so I'm not tracking it halfway across the countryside because I am not a good tracker as a result of my poor color vision. So I just never got around to getting the permit required to use a crossbow, but since the state has gone ahead and changed their laws, I can now crossbow hunt. So I've been toying with a crossbow for quite a while, and I'm not going to lie to you. I really looked hard at those $150 Chinese-made Amazon crossbows, and I really just considered picking one of those up just to kind of give it a try. But I ultimately decided against it because if I do decide I want a crossbow hunt, I didn't want a piece of equipment like that, which is probably not horribly reliable and accurate and things of that effect. So I decided that if I'm going to do this, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to step it up just a little bit and I'm going to get a better piece of equipment, still trying to remain on the budget side of the spectrum. So when I searched on Amazon, I came across and landed on the Killer Instinct Lethal 405. This crossbow sells for about $250. And you get the crossbow, you get 3 bolts, you get a quiver, you get the scope. You basically get everything in the box you need to start crossbow shooting right away. Now, there are some things that you may or may not need. You might need a case, depending on the laws and the rules in your state. You might want to, if you're going to hunt with it, you're going to need to pick up some broadheads. That does not come in the kit. And then I went ahead and I ordered an additional 3 crossbow bolts that have Luminoc nocks on them so that they're easier to find, because a lot of the hunting that we do during the archery season in my area is evening hunting. And if you're shooting in that twilight or dusk area, you might have a hard time finding the arrow without a lighted nock. So what do we know about Killer Instinct? Killer Instinct is a crossbow company that's been in business for about 10 years. They're based out of Michigan, and their goal is to produce high quality products with tons of value for the everyday hunters. They're really just trying to put out good quality equipment that people can afford and people can use. They offer crossbows anywhere from $250 all the way up to $1,000 with a full selection of accessories. So it's kind of your one-stop shop. Their website is for all your crossbow needs. Now, their products are manufactured in Taiwan, but all their design is done in the United States by U.S. engineers. Their quality control is completely U.S. controlled, and they have a full domestic customer service team. So if you do call the customer service line, you're not going to get somebody overseas. You're not going to end up with hours that don't coincide with the hours that we have here in the U.S. You are going to get a full domestic customer service team if you do encounter any problems. Interesting side note, 100% of the crossbows that are under $500 are all made overseas. Every one of them. And any crossbows from 500 up to 1,000, a large portion of the parts and pieces that they use to build those crossbows also come from overseas. So the fact that these crossbows, or that this crossbow in particular, or their crossbows in general, are made in Taiwan really isn't a big barn burner, because pretty much all of them are. Ultimately, what really sets Killer Instinct apart is their support. They really have great support for new shooters, seasoned shooters. Any problems you might have, they have a goal to get them resolved as quickly as possible. And when you buy these crossbows, they come with a lifetime warranty on them for all non-wearing style parts. And then you can buy additional warranty, which will cover far and above their lifetime warranty. And it's their packages and various levels, and I'm not going to get into it. You can go ahead and visit their website to determine that, but you can actually buy maintenance packages or additional warranty, if you will, on these crossbows if you so desire to. Now, what do we know about the Lethal 405? Okay, the Lethal 405 is it's a composite crossbow, so the stock, the barrel area right here, everything from the bow down is a reinforced composite material. Uh, the bow limbs and things like that, they're made like any other traditional crossbow. I'm not going to get into the details about that, but the crossbow itself is supposed to have an approximate speed of about 405 feet per second using the arrows that they sent you. Now they send you what's called a hyper light arrow with a 100 grain tip on it. The arrow, or the bolt weight, I should say, is about 370 grains. Now you can shoot heavier bolts out of this, but to get the optimal performance and speed, that's the bolts that they send you, and that's really the bolts they kind of recommend using. The draw weight on this crossbow is 210 pounds, but don't let that freak you out, because they do give you cocking cables with this. There's no way you're going to cock this thing without cocking cables. And then if you are really in need of it, you can also get a crank style cocking device, which mounts to the butt of your rifle or of your crossbow here, which is basically a crank that will help you to cock this thing. I'll show you more about that later on in the video. It's got 134 foot-pounds of kinetic energy, and the power stroke on this crossbow is about 14 and a half inches. The trigger on this thing is surprisingly light at 3.5 pounds. And again, more about that later when I go ahead and shoot the crossbow, and I'll show you that later in the video. The overall width of the crossbow as it sits right now in the uncocked position is almost 19 inches wide. In the cocked position, it's almost 15 inches wide. The overall length is 34.5 inches. It weighs just a shade over 7 pounds. So that's kind of the basic statistics and layout of the crossbow. Now, when you buy this crossbow, it is going to come in a box and it is going to be disassembled. But I'm here to tell you the assembly process is quite simple. Let's go ahead and get into what's in the box and how to put this crossbow together. All right, so let's see what we get in the box here. So when you open up the box, you get a quick start guide. You get some instructions. You get the actual bow itself. You get a quiver with the quiver mounting accessories. So you get the stock portion of the crossbow. Right there. Very nice. You get the foot stirrup, the cocking rope, some hardware. Looks like you get some barrel lube in there. You get 3 bolts. And it looks like the box with the scope in it. All right, so just looking over the crossbow stock itself, it's exactly what I kind of anticipated it to be. It's a full composite stock. It's not a milled rail aluminum, and yes, I know that the railed or the aluminum barrels on crossbows are very desirable. But if you're looking to just get into entry, there's nothing wrong with getting the composite style like this is. I don't know if I'm going to like crossbow hunting. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. And I didn't want to drop a ton of money. And there are probably a lot of people out there like that. And if you want to just get into an entry level, this will last you for years as long as you take care of it. Sure, it's not aluminum. Maybe it's not quite as high a quality, but it is what it is. And at the end of the day, it only cost me $250 to get this thing. So I'm really not disappointed with it. It looks like it's very well made. It seems like it's very rigid. I don't see any ability to flex it or anything like that. It just looks like it's a fairly well made stock. Once we get all the bubble wrap off of the bow itself, I don't see any problems with the bow. Looks like they already put the spring dampeners in place for you. They've already installed the rubber bumpers on here. It looks like it's pretty much just ready to install on the bow. All right, so to go ahead and install this thing, I'm just going to follow the instructions step by step, and I'm just going to take you along with the ride. So the first thing that they tell you in the instructions is that you have to install the cable slide. Now there's two very distinct grooves on this cable slide. One of them is obviously cut deeper than the other one, and that's because the way these cables are stacked on this bow, one cable is on top of the other cable. So obviously the groove that's deeper has to be, let me see how that goes. The groove that's deeper would have to be on the cable slide, on the cable that's on the top. Yes, so the groove that's deeper, this deeper of the two grooves right there, has got to be on the cable here. You can see where they cross. One is on top of the other. You want the deeper groove on this top cable, it appears. It's pretty well outlined in the instructions. So that's the way it's going to go. And I did watch a couple of instruction videos on the Killer Instinct website, and they said to go ahead and you should lube these cables up with this barrel lube a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and put some of this barrel lube on these cables. I'm going to be pretty generous with it. I'm going to go ahead and I'm even going to stick some down inside of here. We want to make sure that's good and lubed up. Set that off to the side. Deeper groove on the top cable. Then once it's on the cables, you go ahead and slide it to the middle. All right, now that we've got the cable guide in place, it looks like it's just a matter of putting the serving string on top of the barrel and sliding the whole assembly down on top of the crossbow and lining everything up. Boy, that goes together really, really simple. There's nothing to that whatsoever. So the one thing I do notice that I forgot to do, so I'm just going to take it off, is I did not lube the top side of the cable slide. And I remember in the video, they told you to put some lube on the top side of your cable slide there. So we'll go ahead and do that. And then we'll reinsert it. Like I said, this is the first time I'm doing this, and I'm just taking you guys along for the ride. Nothing more simple than that. Looks like everything is lining up correctly like they wanted to, and then it's just a matter of taking these two bolts. I've got a 9/64 Allen wrench here. They do give you an Allen wrench in the kit, but I like T-handled Allen wrenches. I see that there's also a bit of Loctite on there, and it's just a matter of going ahead and installing these two bolts. Okay, now it looks like we flip it over. There's another spot right here to install the shorter bolt. So we'll go ahead and do that. All right, now we need to install the foot stirrup. So we're going to go ahead and back out the set screws on the foot stirrup here. Install the foot stirrup so that the notches are going the same direction as the set screws. Push it all the way in and run the set screws down. All right, so now we've got the crossbow basically assembled. That was very, very simple. Very, very easy to do. Let's go ahead and pull this scope out of the box. Looks like you get some instructions in here. A little cleaning cloth, instructions on how to use the scope. So that's the scope. It looks like it's pretty decent quality. It's got some weight to it, so usually weight is a pretty good indication of having some some decent quality to it. We're going to go ahead and we're just going to loosen up these side screws. We're going to see if they'll line up on the Picatinny rail. Looks like they will. I'm just going to run them, kind of a guesstimate. And then I'm just going to go ahead and take a look through the scope. Way too close. I got to move it, so I'm going to move it forward. You put this scope wherever it's comfortable for you. That's the key to this thing. Comfort is imperative. So I've got a large flat tip screwdriver here. I'm just going to go ahead and snug these down. I am going to presume that a crossbow scope is not all that dissimilar from a rifle scope in that you don't need to gorilla torque these things. Probably about 18, 20 inch-pounds of torque is all you really want to put on those things. You just don't want to over tighten them because it's not necessary. Then finally, the last step to get this thing basically ready to shoot is to go ahead and just put some rail lube on the barrel here. Get it all smeared on there good. You want plenty of lube on here, as I understand it, to save on your servings and your cables and your strings. So as from what I understand, you want to be pretty liberal with this. So the crossbow is basically assembled and you can use it as is, just like it is right now. But I've got one more thing that I'm going to put on here. I went ahead and I sprung for the dead silent cranking device to help with cocking this thing. And I did this for two reasons. One, it'll make it much easier to cock. You can use the ropes and cables, and I'm sure that's just going to be fine, but this will make the whole process much easier. But the other part of this is part of this kit, if you open up this box and you take out the crank itself, the handle, the hardware kit, you also get a butt adapter on there. And what that's going to do is that's actually going to increase my length of pull just a little bit. And for me, that's going to be important because as you well know, I'm 6'3". I'm a big guy. And I need that extra length of pull because otherwise I'm going to feel really squished up on this thing. So I'm installing this cocking kit for two reasons. One, to make it easier to cock the bow. And two, it's going to give me just a little bit of extra length of pull by adding this adapter to the back. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to get this installed. And it's really super simple to do, it appears. There's 2 holes on the back of the butt here. And when you put this adapter on the back, there's a bolt that goes into each one of those holes there, and it just basically screws on to the butt of the stock. So very, very simple. Go ahead and open up the hardware pack. You get 2 screws. They give you an Allen wrench. Happens to be the same Allen wrench that you use for all the rest of the assembly on this thing. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to install this adapter for the cocking device. Go ahead and snug them down. It's just that simple. And then when you use the cocking device, you can see there's a little protrusion right here that goes into the cutout in the back of the buttstock. And then you go ahead and you use this all the way up front here to go ahead and hook up to your string. And that's what cocks the bow. And I can already tell it's super easy to do because I'm just using my fingers and I'm already starting to move the bowstring with very little effort. And I can already tell that by adding this adapter, that has increased my length of pull enough where it's made this scope, the alignment for my eye, much, much nicer. So I'm very glad that I did this. And while we're here, we might as well go ahead and install the quiver. You can install this quiver right side, left side, whichever one you want. That's kind of up to you. But it's pretty simple. You just take the little rail attachment here. You put it on the quiver on whichever orientation you want using a Phillips head screwdriver. Go ahead and just screw it down in there. Then you just take the quick detach mechanism with the Allen screws and the Allen wrench that they give you. Go ahead and mount it to the bottom side of the crossbow. And then to mount the quiver, you just go ahead and slide it into the quick detach, close the lever, locks it into place, and you now have your quiver mounted. And you have a convenient spot to store up to 3 arrows on this quiver. It doesn't hold a ton of them, but how many arrows do you need? It only takes one to put your deer on the ground. Okay, now that we've got the crossbow all assembled and it's ready to go, it's time to zero it in and sight it in and get that scope adjusted. Now, according to the instructions, you're supposed to set a target out at about 10 yards. Pretty hard to miss a fairly large archery target at 10 yards, and this was the case. I was able to hit the target, albeit it wasn't in the middle. And so I took a few shots at this target at 10 yards, and then I went ahead and I made some scope adjustments and got all 3 of the arrows to group within the middle of the target. Now, while I'm shooting these first arrows, some things that I noticed right away was that the trigger is really nice on this thing, and that the recoil on this is actually backwards from what you would expect from a rifle. It's actually kind of a forward pushing recoil as it is a rearward pushing recoil. Now here I'm using the cocking device to cock this thing because I wanted to see what the cocking device was all about. And setting up the cocking device requires some practice. So this was the first time I did it, and I'm sure I'll get better at it as I go, but it's a little bit cumbersome to deal with all those cables and things, find out where to put your hands when you're cranking it. But I will tell you it was fairly effortless to cock the crossbow using this cocking device. It actually made cocking the crossbow pretty easy. And where I can really see me using this is if I'm going to reload the crossbow in the deer stand for whatever reason. If I miss the shot and I want to continue to hunt, I can reload and cock and reload the crossbow in the deer stand. And this cocking device will actually make that pretty easy because a lot of my deer stands, there's not a huge platform. So once you've got the crossbow cocked, it's time to load the bolt. Now you see that I'm making a very concerted effort here to keep my fingers behind where the string would end up. Basically those rubber bumpers. Keep your fingers on the front side of those rubber bumpers, because if that thing accidentally goes off while you're loading an arrow, your fingers are not going to be happy campers. So now I've gone ahead and I've pushed the target out to 20 yards, and I shot 3 arrows to see where it groups, and we'll get more into that later. But here you can see that I'm using the cocking rope. Now, I got to admit, this was a very easy way to do this, and I actually much prefer using the cocking rope over using the crank. But if you have to use the crank is there. If you have the ability to use the cocking rope, I think the cocking rope is a much faster and a much less cumbersome way to set this thing up to shoot. And then, so then once I got that done, I went ahead and I shot some more arrows just to kind of get a feel for how the crossbow shoots, and so I could get the crossbow zeroed. And again, very surprised at how clean the trigger was, how light the trigger was. And even more surprising to me was the accuracy of the crossbow when it was all said and done. This first group of arrows, it's not a bad group. I'm still kind of getting used to shooting this thing. At 20 yards, I was shooting about 1.5 inch group. You could see that I was just a little bit left of center there. So then I went ahead and I made some sight adjustments. And you can see now I'm putting those bolts exactly where they need to be. All right, so with all that being said, what is my first impression on this crossbow? Well, understand, I'm not a crossbow expert. This is actually the first real honest-to-God crossbow I've ever purchased. I've never shot a crossbow before having one of these, except for, the little suction cup crossbows that you used to buy when you were a kid at the dime store. I've never had a real grown-up style crossbow before, and here's what I know. It's far faster than I thought it would ever be. It's far more powerful than I ever thought it would be. The accuracy to me was a bit shocking, how accurate it really truly was. Inside of 12 arrows, I'm already shooting groups where the fletchings are touching each other. It took me years to shoot regular archery equipment to get groups like that. It really did, because that's all technique and it's all style and function and form. This thing, the learning curve was greatly reduced. The accuracy is incredible. The trigger is way better than I could ever thought it could have been. And I'm just really impressed. It's quiet, it's fast, it's accurate. I have absolutely no qualms whatsoever about going out in the deer woods And if I've got a deer within 30 yards, I'm taking the shot. I'm that confident in the fact that I'm actually going to hit that animal, and I'm going to be able to put on a good killing shot with that animal and harvest that animal cleanly and humanely. So with all that being said, if you're looking for a budget crossbow and you don't want to break the bank, the Killer Instinct Lethal 405 would be a great option. So with that, let's go ahead and wrap this video up. As always, thank you to my longtime subscribers. Thank you to everybody who watches these videos, gives me those thumbs up and those comments. I really do appreciate it. And that's really the only way I ever ask you to support this channel, is to go down and hit the like and subscribe button, ring that notification bell, and hit me with those comments. It helps with the algorithms, and it helps me do things like buy crossbows so that I can go ahead and demo them for you, review them for you, and let you know what I think of them. With that, this is Ed with Jack of All Trades. As always, thank you for stopping by, and we will see you on the next video.